All right, let's get right to it. If you're staring down that Cambridge O-level computer science paper, yep, CS 2210, we know the one, and you're feeling that familiar wave of exam prep panic, just take a deep breath. You are in exactly the right place. We've dug through all the examiner reports, so consider this explainer our shared cheat sheet to hacking the syllabus mark scheme. We're going to look directly at what the examiners want, where past candidates have needlessly dropped marks, and exactly how you can secure top scores for Chapter 5, the internet and its uses. Okay, let's dive right into this mental checklist of the exact 5 syllabus pain points we're going to conquer today. 1. The internet versus the World Wide Web. 2. Decoding URLs and protocols. 3. The web browser's job. 4. Locating pages with DNS. And 5. Understanding web cookies. Let's knock these out.
Starting off with Section 1, Internet versus the World Wide Web. Honestly, this is the ultimate exam trap.
Look, year after year, candidates hemorrhage marks because they treat these two terms as the exact same thing. And, spoiler alert, they really aren't. I mean, sure, we've all mixed them up while cramming at 2 a.m., but the mark scheme, it is totally unforgiving about this distinction. You've got to think of the internet as the physical hardware network. It is literally the worldwide collection of interconnected networks and physical devices. It's the infrastructure, and it relies on TCP/IP protocols to move data around. The World Wide Web, on the other hand, is the service running on top of all that physical infrastructure. It's this massive collection of multimedia web pages. You access the web using HTTP, and you find things using URLs. So remember, physical wires and hardware on one side, digital multimedia pages on the other.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this direct warning pulled straight from the examiner's report. They literally call out that candidates fail to distinguish between the infrastructure and the service. So if you get a question asking for the difference, your golden rule is this: define the internet as the global network of networks, and define the World Wide Web as the collection of pages accessed through it. Lock that in, and you've secured those marks.
Moving right along to Section 2, Decoding URLs and Protocols. This is all about understanding web addresses. So once you know the web is this massive collection of pages, you kind of need to know how we actually find them, right? If the exam asks you to state what is meant by a URL, which, by the way, stands for Uniform Resource Locator, your fast, easy mark is right here. A URL is simply a text-based address used to access a specific website or web page. Seriously, don't overcomplicate it. Text-based address is the exact key phrase those examiners are hunting for. But, often they're going to push you to identify the different parts of a URL. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how the address is constructed piece by piece. Think of it like mailing a letter. The protocol, usually HTTP or HTTPS, is your shipping method. Then you've got the website address, which includes the domain name and domain type like .com or .org, and that's basically your city and street. And the final piece is the path or file name. That's like the specific apartment number pointing to the exact directory and item being accessed on that server. If they ask you to name 2 or 3 parts, just pull them right from this list. Easy.
And hey, speaking of protocols, let's quickly clarify HTTP versus HTTPS. HTTP is just the fundamental set of rules you have to follow when transferring files across the internet. But the S in HTTPS, absolutely crucial. It stands for secure. HTTPS is the secure version of the protocol, and it earns its keep because it uses SSL, Secure Sockets Layer, or TLS, Transport Layer Security, to actively encrypt the data being transmitted. So the second you see a question talking about securing personal data, HTTPS should just instantly light up in your brain.
All right, Section 3, the web browser's job. Specifically, purpose versus function.
Okay, I really want you to pay close attention here, because this is another massive trapdoor. Just look at this quote straight from the principal examiner report. Some candidates gave functions of a web browser rather than its purpose. Let me tell you, if an exam paper asks for the purpose of a web browser and you write down something like it stores bookmarks, you are getting a 0. Ouch. We've all made that mistake, treating what the software fundamentally is as the same thing as the extra tools it has. So we're going to fix this exact misunderstanding right now.
So, the crucial point is this. The singular, fundamental purpose of a web browser is that it is a piece of software that renders HTML to display web pages. Full stop. It translates HTML code into a format humans can actually read. If the question asks for the purpose, this is your one and only answer. Now, on the flip side, if the question specifically asks for 3 functions of a web browser, well, that's when you unleash this list.
Functions are things like storing bookmarks and favorites, recording user history, allowing multiple tabs, providing navigation tools and an address bar, and storing and managing cookies. Just keep purpose and functions completely separated in your head, and you're going to grab those 3 to 4 marks without breaking a sweat.
Moving on to Section 4, locating pages with DNS. This is the big one, the 6-mark process. This right here is often the heavy-hitting 6-mark question on your paper. It asks how a web page is requested and displayed when a user types in a URL. And to get full credit, you need a flawless sequence. Let's walk through it logically so it actually sticks. Step 1. The user inputs the URL into the browser. Step 2. The browser sends a request to the domain name server, or DNS, asking for the matching IP address. Step 3. The DNS searches its database and returns that numerical IP address right back to the computer. Step 4. Now the browser knows exactly where to go, so it sends a request directly to the web server using that specific IP address. Step 5. The web server responds by sending the HTML data back. And finally, Step 6. The web browser renders that HTML to display the page on your screen. Memorize these exact steps in order, and those 6 marks are absolutely in the bag.
And finally, Section 5, understanding web cookies, going way beyond just temporary versus permanent.
So, examiners have noted that while students generally know what cookies are, they often completely fail to give enough detail in comparison questions. They just say temporary versus permanent and leave it at that. We need to dig a little deeper. First things first, what is a cookie physically? It is a small text file stored by a web browser on a user's computer or device, and its entire job is to save personal data, track user preferences, or, hold items in a virtual shopping cart. Always mention that it's a small text file managed by the browser.
Let's move to and see how this builds into the perfect 4-mark comparison answer, because you really need those technical specifics. For session cookies, you have to specify that they are stored in the temporary memory, the RAM, and crucially, they are lost, completely deleted, the moment the web browser is closed. Contrast that with persistent cookies. These guys are stored on the hard drive or secondary storage. They aren't lost when the browser closes, they are kept permanently until they either expire after a set time or you manually delete them. Pair RAM with session and hard drive with persistent, and you've perfectly nailed the examiner's requirements.
All right, you now have the ultimate cheat sheet for Chapter 5 of the CS 2110 syllabus. But before we wrap up this explainer, I kind of want to leave you with a thought. We've talked about how browsers record your history, store your bookmarks, and manage persistent cookies on your hard drive to track your preferences. They know where you go, they know what you do. So in this incredibly connected physical infrastructure we call the internet, who is really in control of your digital footprint? Think about that for a second. Keep it in mind as you ace those exams and navigate the web. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and seriously, happy studying. You've got this.